This is Wycombe Sound.
Hello everyone, you're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain. This is the weekly radio show every Tuesday 7pm where we check out the local art scene, we cover events, we have a guest on each week, we have an album review from Twang and Jack Ford over in the Ilkshed, and we also have the Ryelight Zone, which is a weekly episode of a short story, poetry, that kind of thing. And we're going to go straight into that this week with part 2 of a short story that we started last week. This is by Ruth Perkins, who's going to be our guest later on. So here we go.
Just Jean by Ruth Perkins. Part 2. Mr. Bird wandered past the phone. Slowly he noticed it was off the hook. Carefully he approached it, as if sneaking up on a tiger that one must get past to survive. To his dismay, he heard crying on the other end. He looked up and out through the door to the bakery. It must have been his daughter Susan who answered it. Surely this was her responsibility now. He could just leave it and nip back upstairs, he knew, but somehow he didn't want to leave her crying, even if it was just Jean. Bernie Bird tilted his head and drew as close to the phone as he could without actually touching it. The sobbing stopped, and Bernie heard the voice of a middle-aged woman say something about ringing back later. Then the phone went dead. Delicately, Bernie picked up the receiver in his fingertips and placed it back on top of the phone. Then young Mr. Bird, at the grand old age of 62, hobbled painfully back up the stairs. "Hello, Dad? Are you there?" The year is 2017. Jean is 72. She has trouble remembering things most days, but every now and then she still tries to make this call. This is the call that is never answered. "Dad, are you there? I just wanted to say I'm sorry for not phoning more often. I haven't written lately either." The old woman pauses, trying to clear her mind. "My hands hurt, and I can't hold a pen. So I'm sorry." Jenny, her daughter, comes into the room and notices her mother sat on the bed cradling the phone in withered and spider-like hands. Sighing, she sits down next to her mother, waiting for her to finish the call. "I'm tired, Dad, and Jenny's here now. I'll call again later." Jean drops the phone clumsily into the waiting hands of her daughter and slumps forward, closing her eyes. Later she sleeps in the cosy chair in front of the electric fire in the sitting room. The fire is on and the room is terribly hot, but it is her favourite spot. A small girl is playing with a wooden train set, painted in garish pink, pushing the trains round the track and talking to herself all the while. "Mum, who was Gran talking to on the phone?" Jenny is sitting on the sofa, sewing a button onto her child's cardigan. She glances up, then across at her mum, checking she really is fast asleep. She glances at her husband, surfing the net on his phone. He doesn't look up. "She was talking to her dad, sweetie." The little girl looks puzzled for a moment before continuing. "Is he in heaven with Grandpa?" Jenny pauses while she thinks of how to reply. "Yes, dear," she says simply. "But your Gran likes to talk to him every now and then." The man looks up, interested briefly. "He died when she was a child, didn't he?" Jenny looks panicked for a second, but glancing around quickly, she sees that her mother is still asleep and her daughter has stopped listening. "When she was 6, she replies quietly. "That's right," states the man matter-of-factly. "And she still thinks he's alive?" "She always has," says Jenny, and goes on with her sewing. It is 1953. An 8-year-old girl sits on a warm woolen picnic blanket. Her little 5-year-old sister is walking around the lawn spraying the flowers with a solid plastic bright orange ray gun water pistol. She is enjoying it immensely. The 8-year-old, Jean, is setting plates and cups and saucers out ready for a picnic. She has set out everything in 3s. "A cup for me, a cup for Judy, and one for—" Her mother comes over and sits down on the blanket. Is that one for me, love? Jean looks up and frowns. She looks back down at the plastic crockery. No, that one's for Daddy, she says. Her mother looks startled for a moment. Sorry, love, says Mum. That's all right, says Jean. I can put out another cup for you, Mum. She reaches into the hamper behind her and retrieves another set. 5-year-old Judy comes to sit down on the picnic blanket. The three sit for a moment and drink imaginary lemonade, each thinking their own thoughts. There you go, Daddy, Jean says, lifting the 4th cup so that her father can drink. Yes, I made it myself, Daddy. I'm glad you like it. Judy and I picked the lemons from our tree. Her mother looks up casually at the lemon tree that her husband planted when they moved in. Sickly green withered ellipses peek out from among the leaves. Yes, you can have a biscuit, Daddy, continues Jean. Takes a tin and pulls off the lid. It is empty. Jean offers it to the space behind the 4th cup and saucer. She waits for him to take one and then offers them round. Silently, they all eat the pretend biscuits. Frank Bird eyed his son critically. He began to think he would never be completely happy, leaving Bird's family bakers in Bernie's permanently sweaty hands. He made his son nervous. He knew that, but the shop was important to him. It had been opened by his great-grandfather, and he wanted to be sure it would be in safe hands when he absolutely had to retire. For now, he had no choice. He was sure the boy, as he still called his son in his head, despite his 33 years, would manage for the afternoon. He had somewhere very important to be. So Frank Bird fastened his coat and stepped out onto the street. He was only going round the corner, but he quickened his pace as he ran through his head the conversation he was going to have with Mary. He wanted to get it just right. He always got very flustered around her. Not that she ever seemed to mind. She hardly ever noticed. Despite this, Frank's heart leapt in his chest at the thought of her. He imagined her beautiful crystal blue eyes in her lovely smiling face. Not that she was always smiling. She'd had great sadness in her life. She had lost her husband in a car accident some years earlier, and there was the worry about her eldest. It had got worse recently, because the girl had been bullied at school. Now Frank headed towards the red door and knocked. It was quickly answered by an attractive lady with crystal blue eyes. She smiled in relief and invited him in. As he stepped through the door, she spoke hurriedly. Thanks for coming, Frank. I put the kettle on. I need to ask you a favour. It's about Jean. The phone rang. A golden tinkling sound. Hi, Dad. It's Jean. I need to talk to you. It is 1958, and Jean is 13. This is the first phone call to her dad. Mum gave me this number. Why did you go without saying goodbye, Dad? I didn't even see you go. She pauses, struggling to express herself. Jean picks at the stitches in her eiderdown. She straightens out her legs on the bed. Dr. White says it might help if I can just talk to you. He says you don't need to reply, but you can listen. I miss you, Dad. If you come back, I can make you some more lemonade. Jean thinks deeply about what else she wants to say. I'm enjoying school more now. I like English. My teacher's called Mrs. Baranski, and she's my favourite. Jean sighs. She bites her lip. Come back, Dad, she says.
So that was Ruth Perkins' entry into the Ryelight Zone. We're going to go and listen to some music now, and we'll be back shortly afterwards to chat to Ruth and to get to know a little bit more about her work and her stories. So this is Natalie Sings About the Weather by Will Riding.
This bell hangs well and injures none. We're sitting beneath in the warm evening sun, tired and aching, but the day's work is done. And Natalie sings about the weather. I wind my way home and fall through the door. wrestling with sleep till I call it a draw. Bedclothes kicked off in a heap on the floor, while Natalie sings about the weather. The morning light forces a wedge to my eyes. So late to sleep, so early to rise, trapped in my head and buzzing like flies. Natalie sings about the weather. Lifting me up and away from the everyday, the warmest of winds blows all my cares away. It rides in on sunlight, it falls with the rain, it goes round and round 'cause it's stuck in my brain. It's rain on a tin roof, it's the crackle of fire, the first April swallow that lights on the wire. It picks me up and it serves to inspire when Natalie sings about the weather. It comes with the seasons, down all the years, locked in my head and trapped in my ears. It straightens my back and my cares disappear when Natalie sings about the weather. Lifting me up and away from the everyday, the warmest of winds blows all my cares away. It rides in on sunlight, it falls with the rain, it goes round and round 'cause it's stuck in my brain. It's rain on a tin roof, it's the crackle of fire, the first April swallow that lights on the wire. Picks me up and it serves to inspire when Natalie sings, when Natalie sings, when Natalie sings about the weather.
Wycombe Mind mental health charity has transformed the way it offers support during the coronavirus pandemic. They run a helpline from 10 till 2 on Monday, Tuesday and Friday, and between 12 and 2 on Sundays. Wycombe Mind provides support through outreach by delivering essential items such as food and prescriptions. They also provide creative materials for art and gardening. If you'd like to contact Wycombe Mind, please call 01494 448 279 or email inquiries@wycombemind.org.uk.
We are Wycombe Mutual Aid, a group of local residents who have come together to support our community through this crisis. There are 3 key ways that we can help: picking up your prescriptions, doing your shopping for you, or just having a regular chat on the phone. Should you decide to make use of our service, we will pair you with a DBS-checked volunteer who lives close by. If you or someone you know would benefit from our support, please fill in the contact form at wycombe-mutual-aid.org or call 01494 911 229. Thank you.
This is a COVID-19 update from Wycombe Youth Action. If you are a young person in need of support, we are still open and waiting to hear from you. We can provide you with mentoring, information, A-level or GCSE advice, signposting and any other help you may need to guide you through these confusing times. We'll also be running virtual drop-in sessions, Facebook challenges, Snapchat catch-ups and much more. To see what we're up to on social media, search Wycombe Youth Action.
This is an appeal from Wycombe Homeless Connection. People who live on the streets are incredibly vulnerable. Wycombe Homeless Connection work all year round making sure no one ends up living on the streets. They need your help to ensure anyone locally who might otherwise be homeless is safe and secure, and to make sure no one is homeless during the coronavirus pandemic. Just £5 a month can help them continue to support people who are homeless or at risk of homelessness. Visit their website at www.wyhoc.org.uk or call 01494 447 699 to find out more and to give today. Every gift helps. Thank you.
I'm a viral cat playing in the snow, not a feral puss, I'll have you know, and I'm world famous. They took my picture the other day, when most cats were afraid to go out and play, covered from my tail to my eyes in that cold, white stuff from the sky. I'm a viral cat playing in the snow, not a feral puss, I'll have you know, and I'm world famous. I was posted on Facebook that very night. My poor Bitsy, they said. They laughed out loud at my furry plight. So cute, so classic, oh what a sight. I'm a viral cat playing in the snow, not a feral puss, I'll have you know, and I'm world famous. Well, your poor Bitsy's gone viral to cat lovers in US and Oz. But there's one thing I want you all to know, this is not my first time in the snow. I'm a viral cat playing in the snow, not a feral puss, I'll have you know, and I'm world famous. I'm no kitten though I look sweet, I'm your Christmas card image, what a treat. I'm 9 years old and that's a fact, with all my 9 lives intact. I'm a viral cat playing in the snow, not a feral puss, I'll have you know, and I'm world famous. I'm a viral cat playing in the snow, not a feral puss, I'll have you know, and I'm world famous. 50 likes on one page alone.
That was Bitsy's Gone Viral by Heather Innes, and before that we had Natalie Sings About the Weather by Will Riding. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM at Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and I'm joining conversation here with Ruth Perkins, a local writer and author and all-round awesome person. So over to Ruth.
So the first question that I ask everybody is, what was the last book that you read and what did you think of it?
I've been reading, do you know Joseph Delaney?
No, I don't.
Joseph Delaney wrote The Spook's Apprentice. And they're quite old now, but I started off reading those ones, and he's just started a new series called Aberrations, and I've just read the second book in the Aberrations series. They're quite dark, basically like fantasy horror. Probably, I think, for kids, although it's quite gory, so I would think it would probably be like older teens to adults. Yeah. I can't imagine my 11-year-old daughter watching it. She'd be reading it. She'd be horrified.
Yeah. So it's like a step up from Goosebumps, I guess.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, I've never read the Goosebumps books, but we've seen the films, and it's quite gory stuff. It's like proper gothic witches and lots of blood and gore. So.
Awesome. Actually, sounds like my kind of thing.
Yeah, I would read them. They're very good. Yeah. They're quite dark and quite thrilling, and the characters are all sort of quite cynical but hopeful, which is
that's nice.
How I find myself quite often, I think.
Yes, well, especially with the world as it is at the moment, you know.
Yeah. Indeed.
So with your own writing, obviously one of the main things I want to talk about. I wondered, how would you describe your style, and what do you write about?
Well, my style has always really been fantasy. Mostly contemporary fantasy, sometimes slipping a little bit into sci-fi writing. I've been writing primarily for children the last couple of years or so, primarily because I have my own children and we started making up stories, and I thought, well, actually, this would be good to write down. So I'm at the moment currently writing for sort of children aged between about 7 to 11, and all fantasy really. And I tend to write for children who have quite a good grasp of the English language,
Yeah.
and enjoy reading and love the English language the way that I did when I was a child, really.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I think one thing that a lot of authors, the mistake that adult authors writing for children make is when they try and dumb it down and they don't kind of engage them on that level. And you having kids as well must give you an advantage, right? To know how they like to be spoken to and the kind of things that would interest them.
Yeah, I mean, when I was a child, I was reading books that people always said were far too old for me.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was just like, well, that's what I like. That's what I'm interested in. That's what I'm reading. And I find that if you read words, I mean, bigger words than people might think are appropriate for you, and you don't understand it, but you read it in context, you kind of understand it a little bit. And then the next time you read that word, you understand it a little bit more. And that's how you learn about the English language, by just continually reading things that are just a little bit out of your grasp, maybe.
Yeah, that's cool. And so what do you, I mean, I'm assuming your family enjoys your stories, and your kids aren't there like every evening being like, oh no, got to do another chapter. So what does your family think of your writing?
I think they enjoy it. I always read aloud because we've always read bedtime stories to both the girls since they were little. And I've always sort of wanted to maybe read things to them a bit earlier than they should. They both had like all the Lewis Carrolls when they were very young, all the way through. So I think they enjoy it, and they say they do. But because my background is performance, really, I've always been used to performing them. So I try to read them and do different voices for the different characters and perform them as much as possible. And that tends to be the way that I write, really, is stuff that you can read out loud. That's the way it sort of arrives in my head.
I mean, I said to you that one of the reasons, you're one of the first people I approached asking if you do a reading for the radio show, and it's again because your performances and your readings I've always found so engaging. But do you ever find then that you write something and then you read it to your kids and then you realise, oh, this bit didn't work, and then you have to go back to the drawing board, or does it change after you read it aloud?
I think sometimes as I'm writing it, I'm actually sort of saying it in my head, which I think helps. But sometimes when you read it, you realise that the wording isn't quite right, or you will literally just read it and you'll be inserting different words in without thinking it. Subconsciously, you'll be changing it. So then I think it's quite easy to go back and just edit it a little bit, the way that you've actually written it, because you've done it subconsciously anyway.
It's weird because you saying that's kind of like vocalized the sort of thought I guess I've had, because I always wonder that, like, because I do a lot of editing, for other people, and I can't really explain my process. It's just like, oh, I just sort of I work some magic on it and fiddle with it a bit, and it is just about making it read better. So I think I do the same thing, like making sure the sentence, if you're reading a sentence and you run out of breath halfway through reading the sentence, maybe add a comma or break it into, it's so.
Yeah, indeed.
Yeah. And also, I guess it goes back to like the foundations of like storytelling. Like in the very beginning, that was what storytelling was. It was somebody telling stories to people in a cave or whatever. So it's quite cool, I think, that you have that storytelling approach to it, and you think of it as like a bedtime story.
Yeah, I think it's good to always think about how someone's going to sound when they're reading it to themselves. And I think often we only write children's stories that they'll be able to read themselves.
Yeah.
I think that's a bit of a mistake, really. I think there are two different types of stories. There are stories that are meant to be read to you, that you're meant to share, and then there are books that you're just meant to read on your own.
Yeah, that's interesting. And yeah, because I suppose so as well, if you're listening to something, it is generally easier to kind of comprehend it, especially, as you say, with some of these words that you've not seen before, you won't know how to pronounce. Like the number of times I've seen people, especially talk about fantasy books, and they'll talk about the characters, and because, in fantasy, characters generally have quite strange names. And so half the time people only know how to pronounce the character names because they've listened to the audio book. So there's quite an interesting link there between the written and the audio version.
Yeah, I think the same's true of like Shakespeare. If you read Shakespeare on your own, you can't understand it. But if you see people performing it, you realise actually that some of the sentences that you had no understanding what on earth they mean, they suddenly become very simple and very clear.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good way to look at it.
And that's why the actors themselves need to like really understand the story as well. They can't just deliver the lines. They have to understand their motivation behind doing it and then act it out. Cool. And on the subject of like audio and whatnot, have you got any plans to ever release an audio book?
I have to say I hadn't until today. Well, until just recently, but I have really enjoyed. I have really enjoyed doing it and having a little bit of a quirk with it, a little bit of a play with it. And we found this wonderful editing app called Audacity, which apparently is free.
It is, yeah, it's great. That's what I use quite often for the show.
And it was really good fun. So I think that is something that I would definitely consider.
Awesome. Well, I guess again, it's quite sweet because, as you say, your stories are kind of meant to be read aloud, and to have them read aloud in your voice as well is just going to add something to it. But also, it almost kind of allows you to read bedtime stories to, kids anywhere. Maybe kids have got, a tough home life or whatever, and they can put your stories on and listen and take them to a new place. So it's quite a nice thing, I think.
I think that would be a wonderful idea.
So with your stories, and this is quite an interesting question for a writer, I think, because everyone's had to do this. They've had to make weird Google searches. What are some of the weirdest things you've had to search for or to teach yourself about for your stories?
I had to learn quite a lot about corvids, about crows, because I wanted to have magpies and crows in the same story. So I wanted to know how they're similar and how they're different. So I learned an awful lot about corvids. But one of the most strangest Google searches I've ever done was how to poison a guinea pig. Because do you remember the prompt that you gave us where we had to write something in a different genre? Well, I thought, I really love Agatha Christie. Why don't I try murder mystery? So I thought, I'll try murder mystery. I'll try it in a children's sort of genre. And I was like, I don't really want to poison a human being, so why don't I poison her pet? But then I was trying to find out. So I was literally Googling what foods are poisonous to animals. And I discovered that basically chocolate is poisonous to all animals because of a thing called theobromine in it, which is apparently poisonous to us as well. But we have a better endocrine system than they do, basically. So then I also found out that bulbs, any kind of like onion and garlic and anything like that grows in the ground, like potatoes or anything, is also poisonous. And that causes calcification in the animal's body. So it literally turns into stone. But I found out that this takes too long because it would take over weeks and weeks and weeks. And you would probably notice before it had sort of done any severe damage. So I thought, no, that's too long. I'll stick with the chocolate. But then I was like trying to Google how much chocolate would you need to give the guinea pig to poison it? And I was thinking, oh my goodness, if someone reads this, they'll think I'm psychotic. They'll think I'm trying to poison
guinea pig killer.
You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and I'm here in conversation with Ruth Perkins. And this is Jazz DeLorean with This Town Gets in My Dreams.
This town gets in my dreams. If I try to run away, it haunts me. When horizons change, I will leave a part of me behind. I sit here in this tiny room with curtains drawn through rain or shine. I know the view, the wreck out on the roofs, not driving anywhere. University taught me how to be alone in crowds and waste my money well, even though it wasn't mine to spend. Although I bear no grudges from the past, you know I will protect you till we've turned to dust. You keep telling me that nothing's meant to last, so I'm burning all the bridges for the both of us. I crawl across the world, learning faces and forgetting old flames. What is in a name? I sometimes go by more than one. And even though I fell in love, I broke my heart against the rocks and longed to be back home again, beside the River Thames. From the past, you know I will protect you till we've turned to dust. You keep telling me that nothing's meant to last, so I'm burning all the bridges for the both of us. Although I bear no grudges from the past, protect you till we've turned to dust. You keep telling me that nothing's meant to last, so I'm burning all the bridges for the both of us. Will I be here then? Maybe I'll be underneath the sawdust. Lost is the parade when the city has engulfed the town, and the fools and clowns have moved away.
That was This Town Gets In My Dreams by Jazz DeLorean. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I'm your host Dane Cobain, and I'm here in conversation with this week's guest, who is children's author Ruth Perkins.
Well, you kind of have to do that research as well, though, just to make it as realistic as you can, you know, even with, you know, genres like fantasy. Like, I mean, I think one thing with fantasy is, because you can obviously, if you've got a magical system, you can explain quite a lot away with magic. So I think when it's done really well is when people find natural constraints to their magic system. Like one person I was talking to recently, their magical world, the way that you use magic, it had effects on the spellcaster, a bit like radiation poisoning. So it was like, you can use magic, but it has this really negative effect. And that's when I find it really interesting, because then you can then start to explore, like, well, okay, what situation would you need to be in where you would think it's worth doing this, you know? So maybe not one for a children's story, though.
But no, it's good. I think if you are writing fantasy worlds, they should have their own physical laws and their own universe. It should work. I should think.
Yeah, for
I
sure.
think you shouldn't just be able to do anything.
So, in terms of your writing, and we sort of briefly mentioned audiobooks. Have you published any books, or so far have you mostly just been writing for the family?
I've been writing children's books, but I've got 3 that I've finished that are all children's books.
Mm-hmm.
One of which has been through a couple of edits. So
cool.
That's the one I was looking to publish first, because that's the one I finished first. And I was reading this book called The Writer's Yearbook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Children's Writers and Artists Yearbook. And in there it sort of said that most big publishers want things that are submitted by agents. So then I was a step back and I was trying to find an agent. The problem is that the children's writing market is vast and very, very competitive. So I have been trying to find an agent, but with not that much success at the moment. I think that we may be falling back on our sort of plan B, which is that we'll be doing sort of self-publishing, because you can self-publish on Amazon, and it seems like quite a good process, really. And from what I can tell, I know a few people who've done that, and it works quite well. So self-publishing is the area that we're probably looking at next. I actually hired an illustrator to do me some wonderful old-fashioned pencil drawings for the first children's book that I finished, which is called 7 for a Secret. And I've got some beautiful pencil drawings to accompany it when I do actually get it published. So hopefully that will be the next stage.
That's
but then
really cool.
We edit the other ones, the second one and the third one. And as you write, there tends to be, it's very difficult to get them finished, isn't it, really? But I've got 3 finished, and each of the 3 has sort of got like second books, one of which I've started, but sort of in my head to follow on. So the idea was really to start self-publishing them and have a few to choose from. So that's the plan.
Yeah.
To have like a little sort of portfolio, as it were.
And you mentioned working with the illustrator, and that was something I wanted to ask about, because I mean, obviously with children's books, illustrations go particularly well. What was that process like then? And how did it feel to see your world kind of come to life in a visual way?
It's really wonderful and really strange all at once, to be honest, because until you start really thinking about it, there's certain details that you put in a story about the characters, but until you really think about it, you don't realise all the stuff that's in your head that you haven't written down, that you just know because they've come out of your head. So then to see it drawn down on the page is it's wonderful and magical, and it's a very, very good thing that everyone should do, to be able to see the pictures. I'm not lucky enough that I can draw my own pictures, but the illustrator gentleman who I'm using is very, very brilliant, and it all just comes to life. And there was a lot of feedback back and forth about where I wanted the pictures, because the pictures are sort of like start each chapter and on the front cover, and the content that was going in them. And so I had a lot of feedback as well, which is quite nice, about how I wanted it to look. And it's gone very, very well. It's a process I like doing. I'd use them again.
Cool. Yeah. Cool. And so a couple of more random questions. One of them I'd love to hear your thoughts on. What do you think makes for a good story? Perhaps let's do a good children's story in particular.
I think with children's stories, you need a very, very strong bond of friendship throughout, because it's our friends that keep us going, that pick us up when we're a little bit down, that help us move forwards, really. And I think that all books are kind of about hope. They're about our hopes for the future, and even in the darkest of times, it's the hope and the promises of better things to come, and that we can actually make a difference that lead us onwards. So I think you need a little bit of hope, good friends. I think a little bit of magic is always a good thing. And an adventurous nature is always a good thing. I think there always has to be a little bit of risk. For children's writing, you can't afford for it to be too scary. But I think a little bit of risk, a little bit scary is always good. And I think you should always try and embed your stories in real characters. With fantasy, you can really pretty much do whatever you want and just have the whole world turned upside down. But I do think that a fantasy world should have characters that you can relate to, that are based upon real people that you would meet every day in real life. I think that's important. And I try to maintain a sense of wonder, because I think even when you're an adult, you should still have that sense of wonder in everyday life. I think children have that, and sometimes we lose that. But I think that's a wonderful thing.
Do you think that your writing helps you to maintain a sense of wonder yourself?
I think it does help me to express myself. I think a lot of writers write because it helps them to have some control over the world around them, and it helps them to express themselves. Yeah, I think it helps me to explain the world around me as well.
Cool. And do you have any other sort of creative hobbies, or do you not have time?
I've been trying to write a little bit every day, which can be a bit tricky. A little bit every week sometimes is a bit more manageable, but I've been trying to write continuously. But no, one of my favourite things to do is cross stitch. And I've been doing cross stitch since I was a child. Me and my mother used to do it together, sat on the sofa. I think one of the things I find about cross stitch is that it's like reading a good book. You have to concentrate on it and you get really into it. But once you're into it, you're in your own little world, really, and you're completely focused. And by the end of it, hopefully you've created something beautiful, which is a little bit like writing a book, really. I like creating beautiful things. Oscar Wilde said, no matter what you can say of the world, let it be beautiful. Let it be aesthetically pleasing. And I've always thought that was a really nice idea, that everything should be beautiful.
Nothing else. It's one of the things that you yourself can control as well. And you know, I was having this conversation recently with someone else, actually, the idea of, like, you know, art as a mechanism just to make the world a little bit more beautiful. Because we were talking as well, like, with I guess, like, the idea of if you're a writer and you get commissioned to write a piece and you're writing it for the money rather than for the love, like, does that make the art itself, like, inherently less beautiful? And I guess there's arguments both ways, isn't there? But it's an interesting thing to think about. I funnily enough, I used to do cross stitch myself when I was, like, super young, when I was about probably between 8 and 10, something like that. So I never did have the patience to do, like, a really big one, but, you know, a little sort of 3x4 inch, you know, poppy or something like that. And it's true, though, you do get kind of absorbed in it. And but also I find it's one of those things, like, even though you have to concentrate on what you're doing, you can kind of let your mind wander while you're doing it. So I imagine as a writer, that's quite valuable in a way. Like, you could, if you get writer's block, you could go away and do a bit of cross stitch and the problem would sort of work itself over, you know?
Yeah, I think sometimes you can just watch TV, or you can just concentrate on it a little bit, and you can look down and find that you've done, like, loads and loads of different lines and everything, and it's all coming together. I think sometimes I was going to say
sometimes that happens with writing as well, doesn't it?
I think sometimes you can't really see the bigger picture until you've got to a certain stage, and then you step back and then you can see what you've achieved, as it were.
And just one last question to finish on, which is what's next for you and where can people find out more? Technically 2 questions, but
Well, as I said, I would like to get published. I haven't completely given up on the idea of getting an agent, but I think that probably those two things, if I could do, I'd be doing simultaneously, trying to get an agent and self-publish at the same time, keep writing, and hopefully to have a sort of portfolio of stories. But I'm a little bit of a technophobe, so some of the things I want to do is, I think I've shied away from Twitter because I feel like one social media platform is quite enough. I'm quite well addicted to Facebook, and I think Twitter probably is quite addictive as well. But a lot of the publishers and the agents are on Twitter, and I'm thinking that would be a good idea. But also, I would like to do a website. So to set up a website so that people could find me on that as well. At the moment, it's literally just by my email address.
Thank you very much, Ruth Perkins, for joining me. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM at Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain, and this is Clara with Where is the Sky?
Said and walked away. How far is tomorrow? A new day. Can't stand being here, dancing on my own. I wish I could fix it all, to have those loves like we had before. So don't walk home, say no words no more. I can take you on the road tonight, where we can fly where is the sky, and we can be the fools. Oh, I can take you on the road tonight, where we can fly where is the sky, 'cause this is me and you. Now it's been months and weeks and days, yet in the distance I see your face. Cloudy sky will make a sunny day, and I want my partner in crime, a misty one line to fit my rhyme, and you're the one who fits in just so fine. Oh, oh, oh. I can take you on the road tonight, where we can fly where is the sky, and we can be the fools. Oh, oh, oh. I can take you on the road tonight, where we can fly where is the sky, 'cause this is me and you. I can take you on the road tonight, where we can fly where is the sky. I can take you on the road tonight, where we can fly where is the sky, 'cause this is me and you. Oh, 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 oh. And we can be the fools.
Just the flu. We hear people say it every year. But if you're pregnant, there's no just about it. Flu is a virus that can cause harm to you and to your baby. That's why we offer you the flu vaccine free. It's the very best protection for the both of you. Ask your pharmacist, GP or midwife about your free flu vaccine. NHS. We're here to help you protect against flu. Help us help you.
All your business questions answered. Throughout April, HW Bidco will be hosting a series of webinars for local businesses. Join our panel of legal, HR and finance experts who are giving away their advice for free to help businesses navigate the COVID-19 challenges ahead. The first webinar takes place on Wednesday the 8th of April at 3 p.m. For more information and to register, visit the website hwbidco.co.uk.
We followed government advice and set our team up to work remotely. We have taken all the steps we can to keep our team safe so we can be here for you.
That was Same Street by The Altered Mindset. Before that we had Where Is the Sky by Clara. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM at Wycombe Sound. I'm your host, Dane Cobain. This is, I'm going to give a quick shout out to our social medias and stuff here. You can find us if you go onto Facebook by just searching for The Art Show on Wycombe Sound. You should be able to find us. But you can also email me here at the studio on dane.cobain@wycombesound.org.uk. That's dane.cobain@wycombesound.org.uk. And I particularly want to hear from creative people, people involved in the local art scene, musicians, poets. If you've got MP3s, please do send them over and I'll try my best to get them played on the show. But I'm also always looking for new people to interview, so do get in touch if that sounds like something you'd be interested in. So it's time for our weekly album review, and we're going to go straight over to the Ilk Shed to be joined by Twangling Jack Ford.
Carmen Jones. I was going to recommend an opera, but I've let you off easy. This is a musical theatre version of an opera. It has all the great tunes from Bizet's Carmen. However, the lyrics are written by Oscar Hammerstein, and it's set in the Second World War with an all-black cast. Carmen works in a factory, and the character in the opera called Jose is now called Joe, and he's in the forces, and Carmen has tempted him away and he's gone AWOL, and the whole thing concludes outside a big boxing match because the toreador in Carmen, called Esquimilio, is now a boxer called Husky Miller. And he sings that the toreador now goes stand up and fight until you hear the bell. And it's very entertaining. I saw it on a film when I was young, the film starring Dorothy Dandridge and Harry Belafonte, Carmen Jones.
Thank you very much, Twangling Jack Ford, for this week's album review. Thank you to Ruth Perkins for being this week's guest. You're listening to The Art Show on 106.6 FM Wycombe Sound. I've been your host, Dane Cobain. We'll be back next Tuesday at 7 PM. In the meantime, you can listen on Catch Up on iTunes, Spotify, all that good stuff. And I'm going to leave you with one last tune, and it's an absolute banger. This is Tony Goff and the Broken Colours with Rearrange. I'll see you next week.
Down the same roads every day, seeing the same old faces and the same old names. I'm climbing to find me a real safe space. You're struggling to stay afloat. Every breath may be our last. It's time for a change while you have the chances. Time for a change while you have the chance. Time for a change while you have the chance. Oh, trying to figure out just who I am, 'cause I can't remember that shell of a man. Test your limits to find your key. You're breaking hearts to know you're free. Missing out on what I need most. I'm not a person, I'm just a healing post. Sometimes you have to take a leap of faith. Do what scares you, baby, don't ever hesitate. Rearranging, everything's changing. Like in the time, can't find the motivation. Try to figure out just who I am, 'cause I can't remember that shell of a man. Oh, oh, oh. Change your life while you have the chance. You better change your life while you have the chance. Change your life while you have the chance. Oh,